Hey guys, the Comics Kid 2099 here, and I've got a graphic novel that I want to talk to you about. Superman, The Trial of Superman. And this collects a whole bunch of comics. I think it's 12 issues. It's kind of a thick story, and I'm not going to look and see what all comics that it collects because that would take too long, but it's like jumps around between Man of Steel, Action Comics, Adventures of Superman. It jumps around between all those titles that were going on in the mid-ish 90s. And this is actually the last half of the 90s, but it's closer to like 95 than it is 99. And this is sort of a sequel to the Reign of the Supermen, which was that period of time right after the death of Superman where you had Superboy, Steel, the Cyborg Superman, and the Eradicator. This is sort of a sequel to that because the basic premise here is that this group of aliens, they kidnap Superman, and he's drained by the parasite at this point, which is why they're able to kidnap him, and they accuse him of genocide. They say, you are accused of murdering everyone on the planet Krypton. And of course, anyone who, you wouldn't even have to read Superman or watch a Superman anything, anyone, just about everyone knows that Superman was a baby when he left planet Krypton. So right off the bat, the premise is a little weird, but then when he's taken to this tribunal planet, which I've never heard of before, I'm pretty sure it was invented for this story, he's taken to this tribunal planet, and these guys say, it's true, you were a baby, but the sins of the father must be passed down to the son. And in this case, this references some of the mythology from the 1990 Superman comics that was put in place by earlier stories. The Eradication story, which kind of introduced the Eradicator device earlier in the 90s. And then also the Superman... I don't remember the name of the story. I'm going to put it here at the bottom of the screen. It's that really long story where Superman leaves planet Earth because he thought that he killed someone, and then he comes back to planet Earth. It lasted like 12 issues. It was earlier in the 90s. I cannot remember the name of the story, but those stories kind of detail some of the stuff that is put in place, or that's paid off here, sort of, about how Superman's ancestor basically bound every Kryptonian to planet Krypton. So if you tried to leave Krypton, you were going to die. You had to stay on Krypton. And the reason that Clark Kent, Superman, Kal-El, was able to leave Krypton was because his father changed his genetic code so that he was not bound to Krypton. And that is basically the reason why Superman is on trial, because when the planet Krypton exploded and everyone died, basically that was the fault of Kal-El, Kal-El's ancestor. And so he is on this tribunal planet, and he escapes with a few other aliens, and then the story for about a third of this book kind of kills some time. They meet a group of pirates, and then they befriend those pirates. There's this place called Haven, and then they're betrayed by one of the aliens that's with them, and it kills a lot of time for about a third of the story. And while all of that is going on, while Superman is trying to prove the innocence of one of the aliens with him, you've got Steel, Superboy, Supergirl, and Alpha Centurion, all of those guys, and that later the Eradicator, they are all going into outer space to try and find Superman, because they all know that Superman has been kidnapped by these aliens. And basically, the whole story comes down to the cyborg Superman is working with these aliens of the tribunal, and he just wants to kill Superman, and he also wants to steal the tribunal planet and turn it into War World, because I'm pretty sure at one point the cyborg Superman had taken over War World that once belonged to Mongol. I think that had happened, but I'm not entirely certain. And so this whole story kind of, it's not really a very good story. Like I said, most of the story doesn't actually have anything to do with Superman being on trial, because very quickly Superman says, this is ridiculous. I didn't actually commit any crimes. And the judges say, we know that you didn't, but you're still being put on trial for something that someone else did. The story acknowledges how stupid and ridiculous that is, but that doesn't change the fact that it is stupid and ridiculous. So this whole 12-issue event kind of rests on a premise that's very faulty, and the story even acknowledges that it's faulty, but it still goes through with it. And then also, it kills a lot of time that really didn't need to be killed. It really just needed to be a smaller event. This whole story probably could have been 8 issues instead of 12, because you've got a whole lot of Steel, Superboy, Supergirl, Alpha Centurion, and the Eradicator in outer space looking for Superman, and they basically do nothing. They don't help rescue Superman. He gets out of this jam completely on his own. We didn't need to kill like a fifth of this book with these guys just hanging out in outer space, with Superboy thinking that the Alpha Centurion is the cyborg in disguise. We really didn't need all of that in this book. It's just extraneous stuff that weighs the book down and slows the story down a lot. I also as fun as adventure stories set in outer space can be, I also didn't really think that we needed all of the stuff between Superman escaping the Tribunal Planet and then coming back to the Tribunal Planet to try and prove that he was innocent. The story also, it feels like by the time they get back to the tribunal, it feels like the people who are working on this story really didn't know how to end this. So they've got this one judge who's basically just psychotic, and he's basically willing to let anything happen as long as Superman dies. I don't really understand what he has against Superman specifically, because there's one alien who escapes with Superman, and then he's in prison on this other planet, and he doesn't come back to the Tribunal Planet. And then these Tribunal aliens, they don't seem to care about that guy, but for some reason they are willing to make an alliance with the cyborg Superman, who is crazy and is genocidal. They're willing to basically do anything to capture Superman and put him to death. And this one guy in particular, he is just nuts. And I think the story realized we need to find a way to have Superman come to an understanding with the Tribunal aliens. So, for no real reason at all, one of these Tribunal guys basically goes insane, and then the other two Tribunal guys, they're like, yeah, you're actually starting to break the law just to have Superman killed. We're going to have to arrest you and have you put to death. And so he tries to escape, and then this guard shoots him because he's breaking the law and has been for a little while. And it really feels like the story, like I said, it didn't know how to end. So we have to have one of the Tribunal guys be insane, and then the other two can say, he was insane. So as long as you go back to Earth and you keep fighting the good fight to atone for the sins of your father, then we're going to let you go. It really felt like they were writing this kind of crazy, kind of stupid premise, and they didn't realize that they needed to wrap it up. They didn't know what to do, so they had to have one of the Tribunal guys be corrupt and kind of evil. I don't know why he was corrupt and evil. They said that Superman's presence kind of drove him to this, but I don't understand how or why. These guys have been putting people on trial for a very long time, which, by the way, why did it take them 33 years to find Superman? Why didn't they find him when he was 12 or 13 and put him on trial? Why did it take them till now to do that? And the answer to that is because elements like the Eradicator and Superman in Outer Space Exile. The name of that story was Superman Exile. Wow. Of course, it's like 5 minutes too late, but whatever. I remembered it finally. Elements in Superman Exile and Superman Eradication, the origin of the Eradicator, those elements hadn't been put into place when Superman was 13. So that's why. But still, you have to wonder, why is this tribunal that's been around forever waiting until now to put Superman on trial? Basically, this story, I would not recommend it. It has a little bit in common with Planet Hulk. It feels kind of like if the Hulk was kidnapped instead of ousted from planet Earth by his friends. It feels kind of like that. So if instead of being ousted from planet Earth, Hulk was just kidnapped by other aliens, and then these aliens were like, hey, we're going to put you on trial, and Hulk's like, no, I'm going to try and prove my innocence. Maybe you're thinking it doesn't really have that much to do with Planet Hulk. It kind of reminded me of Planet Hulk, especially this little guy. His name is Mope, and he is the alien that Superman is trying to prove is innocent. And he reminded me a lot of Meep from Planet Hulk, not as corrupt and evil as Meep was later revealed to be. Spoiler for Planet Hulk and World War Hulk. But Mope kind of reminded me of Meep. Even their names kind of sort of sound the same. I didn't really care for the story, unfortunately. This is a story where, in my opinion, almost nothing about it worked. It was basically just kind of treading story that we've seen before. Not really story, but treading ground that we've seen before, because we've seen Superman in space quite a few times over the years, but I would say several of those stories are a lot better than this one. This one builds itself on a faulty foundation, and it goes from there, still running with this faulty foundation, and then it doesn't know where to go with that foundation. So this is a story that I don't think works. I don't really think I could recommend it to anybody. I know the people who were working on this story, they did a lot of other good stories in the 90s, so you could definitely check out those other 90s Superman stories by Roger Stern, Louise Simonson, John Bogdanoff. Check out the stories by those guys, but this one right here is not really a very good story in my opinion. So that is my thoughts on the trial of Superman. I hope that you guys liked this video. If you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I've got some other videos coming out later throughout the rest of the week. So I will be sure to see you guys then. Have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.